trying to do now in America. And solid leader, is exhibited in the military, in the business world. And like I said, one of the main things that struck me about him is his passion for America and his desire really to continue serving that he began in the military. So I'm proud to introduce Andre Barnett, and we'll let him take it away here. And thanks again, Andre.
Thank you, Andrew. To all of you, I appreciate you letting me address this assembly at your national convention. Today I'm coming before you not just as a candidate for your nomination, but I'm coming before you as a friend and a brother in arms. Throughout America's history, we have stood together in the face of adversity. Today, our adversity is the establishment of politics, and also the international pressures that are upon the U.S. right now. We need to look at America. We need to look inwardly. And this takes courage. All of the issues that we face today don't come from external threats. Not all of them. The major issues come from right here in our own country. It's the political leadership that we have in place in Washington, D.C. For years now, they have focused on divisive tactics. These tactics divide America, and they render us manageable. Many times before, you've heard me speak, if you've listened to my videos or any of the other engagements that I've been a part of, about how we have to stand together. Right now, I need you to stand with me. Stand with me this election season. Let Washington, D.C. know that we are not going to put up with more of the same tactics, more of the same political rhetoric, games, more taking away from our future, our children, our livelihoods. We have so much to offer in this country, yet we've stumbled many times over due to the fact that we just have not taken action. As a people, we can change that. And that starts right now. When you select a candidate for today, for this coming election, you're selecting a future. Now you can have the future of President Obama, another 4 years. You can have his Obamacare. You can have his economic plan, a failure. You can choose Mitt Romney. Mitt Romney's been a part of the establishment for 4 years. He may not have served in Congress or in the House of Representatives, but his track record of voting as a mayor, as a governor, has been one that does not indicate he has any care or consideration for the common person here in the U.S. We have so much to give to our children. We have a promise to keep to them. It used to be that parents actually looked out for what was best for our children. We wanted more for them than what we have. Yet today, most parents are just trying to get by. The huge cost and burden that we have taken out upon ourselves and we're placing upon our children is devastating for the future. So, right now, I'd like to just let you into a little bit of my vision for the future. We hear so many times politicians complain about what's going on and how the other parties have affected us adversely. However, they don't come with solutions. That's where I differ. I want to tell you about what my plan is, how I can affect you as an individual, how I can bring jobs back to America. Now, I know you're hearing a lot of I. However, this I means that it's a unified country. We as a people have to stand as one body. And this is the only way that this works. Number one, we have got to get back to limited taxation and limited government. That is the first step in making things better for our country. Number two, we have got to remove the secularized education that we're enforcing on our children. What we teach at home should be complemented by what is taught in the schools, not contradicted. This is the only way that our children can compete on an international level and have an even playing field. We need the advantage here at home, but in the international community, we can at least have even odds. Number 3, we have got to get people back to work. And the way we do this is by creating that environment where businesses can thrive. And how do we do that? Of course, we lower the taxes on corporations. And I'm not saying that we raise taxes on individuals. We have to remove that stumbling block for individuals as well. If you as a people think that your government is ripping you off, you're not going to have that patriotic spirit. You won't want to take part in your government. I need you to trust again. We need to be able to trust. That means I want to be able to say, hey, you know what? I want to give you more money to take home with you. Mitt Romney would say that you're going to get it by the tax breaks, these Bush-cut tax breaks that we're going to have, and also we want to lower the tax rate for businesses. His lowering of tax rates for businesses only incurs an increase in revenue for the top. It does not incur or include an increase in revenue for you. President Obama says he only wants tax breaks for the middle class and below. That means he's going to put devastating tax hikes on job creators. Now, this is, of course, the conservative rhetoric that comes out of the Republican Party. What I'm going to say is we can limit taxation across the board for everyone, but we can do it in a way that is effective in increasing revenue towards getting rid of our debt, increase revenue towards investing in our education system and in our infrastructure. How do we do this? I propose that we implement a structured tariff solution that comes in on imports that come into our country, especially from those countries who have large tariffs on our goods, on our exports. Now, many have come across and said, the only way that you're going to do this is if you start a tariff war. Well, the reality is we've been in a tariff war for many years. We just haven't fought back. Our goods are going to different countries that put high tariffs on them. That's why they don't sell. That's why you don't see as many Made in America symbols on goods in other countries as you see Made in China, Made in Taiwan, and Made in Thailand here in the U.S. Why is that? Because we haven't fought back. We're not protecting our economy. That's the other part. Your leadership as president, he has to protect this country. That does not just mean in war or physical protection, but economically, socially. We need to protect our citizens. And I would do this by detaching ourselves to some degree from the international economic infrastructure. That's the way that we can hedge ourselves against the downfalls of the international community. Many people have beat China up over its economic practices. However, when we look at what happened during the economic crisis, the global economic crisis, China thrived still. Now, don't get me wrong. I don't believe in any way, shape, or form in a government or economy. What I do believe in is safeguarding ourselves from what's happening in the international community. If Greece fails in their economic plan, then that should not affect the U.S. We should not have to bail out other countries at the cost and expense and degradation of life of our citizens. If Europe has a debt crisis or has an economic crisis, that should not affect American citizens. We have got to learn that we don't have to make ourselves slaves and beholden to the international community. America is sovereign. That is why we came to America. That's why this country was created. So, if you want a future that is beholden to the international community, if you want a future that is going to be high taxes for one group or the other, if you want a future that's based on divisive tactics, political rhetoric that degrades our life, that pollutes the minds of our children, and that basically renders us useless as a nation, then you'll vote for an establishment candidate. If you want a future that actually takes into consideration the needs of our country, takes in the needs of your family, the desires to have better for your children than what you have, for a better America, for a better and brighter future, then vote for me. Thank you.
Anybody have any questions for Andre?
What is his surname?
Barnett.
Running mate.
Andre.
Yes.
Do you have a current running mate?
As of right now, we have a few people being considered. However, there is a bit of a stumbling block because we really want to do more vetting on some of these, the other nominees that are out there. The problem is a lot of people are still succumbing to the influences of the corporate sector, and also we have some that are actually trying to get in good with the establishment parties for funding reasons. These aren't people that I can really trust. If you're going to sell out the American people on the front end for favors on the back end, I don't want you as a running mate. And this is what we've run into with a lot of people that we've been vetting.
Ballot access. Well, how many states are you going to be on the ballot in?
I'm very sorry, I can barely hear what you said there.
He wanted to know how many states you're going to have ballot access in.
Well, the best case scenario, we would have ballot access in 44 states. Worst case scenario, we'll have ballot access in 30.
How is he going to be listed on the ballot? I mean, what's going to be? Is it going to be independent?
How will you be listed on the ballot, Andre? As an independent?
I will be listed as independent. There may be a Reform Party tag, but it will be independent.
Anybody else have? Yeah, go ahead.
His statement about corporate taxes. Does he understand what the effective tax rate is in the U.S. right now? I mean, I discussed this yesterday. So let me come closer. I want to engage in discussion on it. Andre, this is John Martin.
Hi, John.
Yeah, I've written a book here that I just released called Selling Us Out. And I had a presentation I gave here yesterday. I did a lot of research. I'm an engineer by education. I also served in the military for 9 years. That's ancient history. I'm not like you guys here recently. So I had easy duty. But anyway, the book that I wrote, I did a lot of research on trade policy and economic policy in the U.S. And I feel like I've got the data that clearly shows the U.S. economy, the reason we're suffering as bad as we are, is because failed trade policies and economic policies that have really been in place for the last 40 years. This isn't a recent phenomenon. It actually started in the 60s with our really inept response to the aggressive and predatory trade practices of Japan and then Taiwan and the other Asian countries. But anyway, when I go on all those more details, I just want to ask a question. Your comment about effective tax rates. In my book, I did research, and quite frankly, I was surprised when I came across the data that even though the political parties like to have nice sound bites about how the U.S. corporate tax rate's the highest in the world and blah, 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 the reality is that the effective tax rate that the U.S. corporations are paying is in the neighborhood of 13%, which is the 5th lowest in the world. So I'm concerned, honestly, about your statement of we're going to lower corporate taxes, because quite frankly, corporations are only paying about 9% of the total pie right now, which is down from about 40%, which is what they used to pay. So could you elaborate on that a little bit more? Because honestly, that's a concern for me.
Great. And you know what? I love that question. When I said we're going to lower the tax rate, what it meant is we're lowering the tax rate, we're simplifying the tax code. And I'd love to elaborate on that. What we're doing is we want to put in a straight across-the-board tax rate for all corporations. There would be no loopholes. There would be no way to get around it. And there would only be one tax credit for any corporation. And that is our health care premiums tax rate. If you pay the tax, the healthcare premiums for all of your employees, that means if it's a family, they have to pay the family premium. If it's an individual, they pay the individual. We will give you a tax rate. We will take the tax, the effective tax rate to 9.5% across the board, which is still more than what most corporations are paying today. This would actually increase revenue.
My name is Michael Leary.
Okay, we're getting some feedback here. I'm sorry, guys.
My name is Michael Leary. I'm in Minnesota. Thank you for being here. My question is...
We just got to bring down our podium mic on, right? Hold on just a second. Okay, that should help.
Okay, I'm very sorry. We seem to be getting a really high-pitched feedback. Are you guys hearing that on your side?
Yeah, we did.
Oh, maybe we're still getting it. Let's turn that down.
Here, yeah. It should be number 1, I believe.
He's gonna, there you go, I'll take care of it right there.
Can you hear us, Andre?
Hopefully that helps.
That's all I do is move.
Andre, can you hear us?
I can now. It's a little better.
Okay. Do you honestly believe that the corporations at this point are paying less than 9.5%, and you think that by closing the loopholes that you're talking about, that would actually increase that? I have a little bit of trouble crunching the numbers in my head that way. How is it that we're going to get these companies to pay more? Is closing loopholes and all that going to encourage that?
Okay, that broke up pretty bad. Did you ask me if closing the loopholes and raising the tax standard was going to encourage businesses? Is that what you asked?
Well, my basic question is, I don't know why that's doing that.
This hasn't happened before, Andre. Just bear with us.
Anyway, why don't you get as close to, if you're using a microphone on the laptop, you might want to get as close to the laptop as possible.
Oh, we might have done it. There we go. Okay.
That was these guys.
Sorry, a lot of discussion has gone on, and I own a company, so I'm very interested in this. And I am an employer, and I fight a really big battle with taxes, specifically payroll taxes, and the way that I'm taxed, both as a company and then again as an individual. And of course, the better my company does, the more I get squished, and I have just been demolished in a lot of ways because I can't understand this super complicated tax code, and I am not responding to it well. And my wife and I had an aneurysm the first time we got hit with the cost of success in America. And so what I would love to see is a way of simplifying that. What I ask of the candidates in their policy making is do you honestly believe that the big guys like, Target and Best Buy and the big banks, do you think that by closing all these loopholes and simplifying that code, you are going to get them to pay more? And get them to pay what functionally I pay as a little guy who doesn't have 45 tax attorneys.
That last one.
This is not a plan that is structured to benefit corporations any more than it is to benefit individuals. My plan is to benefit America as a whole. And so I'm not going to cater to one side or the other. Right now we need to bite the bullet and make this happen. So let me give you the philosophy. By creating that 9% across the board tax bracket or tax level, corporate tax rate, effectively, we make this one of the lowest in the world. Now, that being said, you've created a tax shelter, and businesses really don't have an excuse not to come back to the U.S. We'll make it cheaper to do business here because of the structured tariff demands that we'll have put on those goods, only imports, from countries that are putting high tariffs on our exports. At the same time, for individuals, I favor a fair or a flat tax. Now, this can be a hybrid. Simplifying this meaning that you don't pay taxes on your income as an individual. It would be more of a consumption tax across the board at a very low rate. And when I say low rate, anywhere from New York's rate of 8% to 12%. So you'd be right in line with what corporations or the larger corporations are paying. As a small business, you would have the same tax rate that any corporation would have. So if you want me to elaborate more, just give me a specific question. I'd be glad to go further into detail.
What, there's I ran for an option, so I thought I'd turn back up. Thank you. My main concern in the business world is that the companies these days are functionally rigging the system at the larger level. I don't expect necessarily to pay less money than, say, Target does as a percentage of my income. I think that's fine. So I guess my main concern is if you have these kind of crazy laws that we currently have, what effect does it have on the big guys to make a simple system that I can use and that they can use at the same time? And I guess what I'm really trying to say is, do you honestly believe that is possible?
I'm sorry to say, we're still breaking up a bit. And let me see if I got the question as it broke up. You want to know if what this, I guess, my plan is going to do to make it so you're paying not less, but the same as the larger businesses, and not paying more. Is that what your question was? I really didn't get a lot of it because it was breaking up so badly.
I'm sorry. It's kind of a difficult thing to describe, because what I'm experiencing is I'm experiencing at the smaller level a whole lot of static and misunderstanding and tax code baloney. Whereas at the higher levels, they cut through that like a hot knife through butter. And so a lot of people talk about trying to re-rig the system. My question to you is, do you feel like do you really believe that what your plan can do, in policy-wise, literally applied policy, can bridge that gap and make it so that the little guy isn't swarming in a huge sea of red tape while the big guys are just, they're plowing right through it?
Okay, I understand your question. Thank you. Now, I'm not looking to bridge a gap. I'm looking to really replace the system, replace the structure. You see, and I like to use an analogy of old machines that don't work, or you have parts that are breaking. If you have a sprocket in a tractor, and I'm going to say this because I have a lot of friends that have farms. I speak to a lot of people that do support me that have farmland, that have cattle, that really work hard. Not saying that anyone else doesn't, but these guys are up at the crack of dawn until the dark, until the sun goes down, working out in these fields. But if you've got a tractor that has a sprocket that's rusted and broken, you're not going to just put another chain or try to weld a hook or a point on a sprocket that's rusting. You're going to replace that entire sprocket. And that's sort of like our tax code. We can't just look at the tax code and say, okay, we can bridge this, or we can kind of fix this part or fix that part. What we have to do is look at the entire tax code, how it is going to affect the rest of the economy if we change it. Now, just changing a part of it is going to have adverse effects on another part of the economy. That's why my plan is all-encompassing. You heard me bring in some portion of the healthcare, my healthcare plan. That healthcare plan actually branches out into other sectors, and it says, look, we have got to take care of people as a whole, of the entire country. And When I say that the tax code is going to be changed at a level where businesses don't have a way of cutting through, they don't have a way of paying less, they don't have a way of cutting through red tape. Number one, there is no red tape. This is across the board. This is not a, you can have it this way or you can have it that way. Either you pay the 12.5% or you pay the healthcare premium and you pay the 9.5%. No matter what. There is no other, there's no other piece or portion of law that you can lean on to change it. And it's going to be the same for any business. So if you're a smaller company and you have health care for your employees, this tax code is going to say, okay, look, you're going to pay 12.5% if you don't have health care for your employees, or if you don't pay the premiums. We still want you to offer it, but if you'll pay those premiums, then we're taking it to 9.5%. Now, this is still something that details and negotiations can be hammered out, but these are the rough numbers that we have found that will work to bring us out of debt, and also in line with the tariffs that we plan on implementing. This will also allow us to pay for all of the investments that we need for this country, as well as having a surplus at the end of the year. That's what we need. We need to get back into the black and out of the red in this country.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Can I ask one more thing?
Yeah.
Hi, this is John Martin. So I just had a suggestion. I did some research, like I said, on this book that I'd written, and one of the experts that I had researched and made what I thought was a pretty logical suggestion, and that was to, instead of going with a flat tax, because actually flat taxes were tried when the original income tax was implemented back in 1913. It was tried for roughly 7 or 8 years, and it was thrown out because it was a regressive system. It didn't tax enough on the high end, and it taxed too much on the low end. I do believe that the progressive tax system, and it's not just my belief, but those that I've read that are much more knowledgeable than I am about this, the current progressive system is not is the right system. The problem with the current progressive system is it's been perverted and destroyed with all the lobbyists and loopholes that's taken place since its original implementation. And the other problem with the current system is it's focused on social engineering and not on revenue collection. The tax system should, according to my research, really should be just a revenue collection vehicle and not social engineering. So what was suggested by the person that I researched was, and I think, again, it's just a point of discussion and a suggestion, was that we go back to the original tax code of IRC 1939 and just update that to a more current version for today's purposes, but get rid of all the loopholes and all the special deductions and so forth, and not try to give people incentives to behave other than how they would normally behave. Let them spend their money how they will and not try to influence that through the tax code. And the IRC 1939 was really the first common tax code where we pulled all the other codes that existed at that time together and made the first Internal Revenue Code. So just a suggestion, maybe look into that. And if you'd like, later I can email you or whatever, we could exchange and I can give you the references that I have in my book relative to that.
I would love to hear from you. I have no issues taking new things or ideas into consideration. One of the things that I will say, with IRC 1939, you're right, they pulled a lot of the other tax code in and they tried to simplify it. The problem is, IRC 1939 still left that wiggle room for them to change, to make it more beneficial to one sector, one group, or another. And this is why one of the reasons I've selected a fair tax is so that the revenue collection is done automatically across the board. That means no matter what it is or what entity, if it's a person or if it's a business, it's still going to collect that revenue, period. It's going to come in. And it's going to be minimized because when you as an employee get your paycheck, you're not paying anything out of your paycheck. It's not coming to the government. That stays with you. Now, what you purchase, what you buy, that's where we're going to have the revenue collection. And I think that that is going to increase revenue because you're buying constantly. People have to survive. You buy food, you buy gas. One of the other things, and I'm just going to kind of spur off here, I also believe, especially when we're talking about energy, we have got to get back to real supply and demand. We can't put our faith and trust in speculation anymore. We can't do these kind of things. That is not beneficial to the American public. In fact, it deteriorates and erodes our ability to generate and effectively get the energy resources that we need. So, but back to the taxes, we have got to have a way that is constant. It's not going to change, and there aren't so many moving parts. That's where we get ourselves into trouble, by making things overcomplicated. This country was not created in a complicated fashion. It's very simple. Again, it was minimal taxation, minimal government. And that's really where we need to be. People don't need to be utilized as ATMs. We have got to draw down the size of government. We've got to spend sparingly. And we have got to give a break to the American people. We've been utilizing them. We actually just, I'm going to go back to the farm analogy. We're tilling the ground and we're planting, and we're not planting, we're not feeding our crop. And that's what they're utilizing the American people as a crop, a money crop. And that's something that I want to end. I'm looking out at relatives, I'm looking out at neighbors, I'm looking out at friends. All these people that I know, I myself own a business. I understand what's happening with the taxes. I know that what I pay in taxes as a business and then as an individual it's just devastating. Last year I paid over 40% as an individual in taxes. Now, don't get me wrong. I have a great attorney. I have a wonderful CPA. And, we can, thank God, we're able to get some of that back. But I still don't buck the system and pay less than my share. That's because of the law as it stands. But we need to change that. People don't need to fund all of these extracurricular activities of the government. Giving money to other countries constantly. Paying for various wars. Being in the pockets of different organizations, small international groups that do not have the U.S.'s best interest in mind. I plan on cutting back on all of these activities. Our government is to protect our people, not to work in the interest of other countries.
Good afternoon, Andre. My name is Joe Brown, and I'm in Missouri. I'm currently running, actually, for Congress, U.S. Congress, for the 7th District. That's in southwest Missouri. I went to your website, and I've read some of your points on the education department, specifically around the fact that, and this is something I agree with, and I'd like to see more thought like this, the idea of fixing something that's broken as opposed to destroying it. One of my points that I would like to see a little more clarification from you, if you would indulge me, is, and you made the comment in your opening around secularism and how it is applied to our national and our state education systems. Thank you.
Okay. Secularism, we're teaching our children, and I'm going to use a case in point here in New York. We teach that same-sex marriage is okay. We teach bestiality. We teach promiscuity. We're teaching our children as young as in the 5th grade how to use condoms. Now, we're also teaching and this is, again, I believe in sciences, but I also am a man of faith. So we teach evolution, we teach various forms of math that really, I've looked at, we call it the other math. And that we use that jokingly, that must be that other math. But oftentimes, I'm looking at children that can't do math in their head. We teach them only to use computers. We teach them, in fact, we're eliminating cursive handwriting from our elementary schools. We're teaching to use Skype and texting in our classrooms. And these are all great sciences. However, our children aren't getting the fundamental skills they need. And when I go back to the secular side, we're also teaching communitarianism, which is that you have it really eliminates patriotism. It eliminates the ability for children to really stand out. And this is not just in the classroom, but on the sports field as well. We've encountered many instances where our children who are very good at sports are forced to curtail their activity, their place on the sidelines because they're just too good. And that just doesn't make sense. If you are that far advanced, then you should be praised and you should be elevated. You shouldn't have your ability stifled by the school. So these kind of things, what we teach in school should complement what we teach at home. So I think sexual orientation, though you can teach about the human body and how the body parts work, I don't think that sex in any way, shape, or form should be taught in school. I don't think that religion, or if it is a part of the curriculum, in many schools it is, I don't think that it should be specific as far as, and let me recant that because I didn't mean to say religion, but evolution. I think that it has to be taught in the same fashion as saying this is one philosophy, this is another. You have the theory of evolution. You also have the theory of creationism. You have to have a complementary system where children's minds can actually grow. And you cannot direct them down a path that says you can only think this way or that way. We have a linear education system, which is why many of the issues that we face today they seem to be unsolvable. And that is not the case. We don't have to say you can either cut taxes for this class or cut taxes for this class. We don't have to say this is right and it's only right this way. So, and let me kind of be specific about that. One of the issues that I ran into, and I have a lot of young people that write to my campaign, this is one of the things that really, really drives me when young people take an interest in this campaign. In fact, one of the young girls was from Missouri. She was doing an essay on me. And some of the questions she asked, as she was of Christian faith, and she said, my school teaches that evolution is a fact. She also has a teacher who is gay, lesbian, and she said that same-sex marriage was okay. Her parents had a problem with this, and she was conflicted. However, what was told to the parents of this child were, this is the education, this is the curriculum that we teach, and this is, what's on the books. If you want to teach your child differently, you have the option of home education. Now, that should never, ever be the situation in our schools. We need to make sure that what we are teaching these students goes in line with what they get at home. This is the root cause of a larger problem in our country. So many times we're looking at children that are out of control. We have more gang members. We have less informed children that are willing to submit themselves to extremist causes. We have children that don't respect parents, authority figures, or any other police officials. They just don't have that respect anymore. They don't do as well in school. We're falling behind against many nations as far as our education is concerned. And this all started with, again, the Department of Education's implementation back in 1973, I believe. I'm sorry, 1973. And after that, since that time, we've gone on a straight downhill slide in our education system. We have got to get back to teaching children what is required for them to be effectively competitive in the global market as well as here in the U.S. We're wondering why other people are brought in from different countries to fill higher positions. I've lived around the world, from Europe to Eastern Asia. Actually, the only continent I haven't lived on is Africa. So I've watched how these children are cultivated. I use Asia a lot because China's children are actually really spoon-fed from birth education. Now, yes, they do have a skewed vision of the rest of the world, but at the same time, they have some extremely bright children, as we do, but they're cultivated more and more every year. They pour so much money into their school system, but it's not based around trying to make it more secularized. It's based around real math, real science, real sociology, if you will. It's based around getting them to know how to solve problems and how to do it more effectively. Now, that's what we need to teach here. We need to get back to the fundamentals. Texting, IMing, these are not fundamentals to me. Doing math on a calculator is not a fundamental. Being able to do math in your own head, to work out problems, is essential to being able to branch out and work out problems in other areas. These are things that we take away. We become secular because we're focusing more on social issues in school than we are on the maths, the sciences, and the problem-solving skills that children need.
Anybody else have any other questions? Okay, Andre, we have some questions from online delegates for you. We appreciate your time. All right. Let's see here. We have a question coming in from actually several delegates regarding the current HR 1489 that's before the House, calling for the reinstatement of the Glass-Steagall Act, separating banking systems as they once were. Would you support something like that? And if so, why? And if not, why?
I would definitely support it. Number one, our banking industry is taking advantage of our citizens. This is usually on at the most basic level, and our citizens are paying so much more in interest, while the bank is taking and they're not receiving much of an interest or return on any investments. So when let me give you a case in point. My fiance, she works in investments. Right now, people are complaining about the returns on CDs, bonds, while the bank takes money that you invest in your accounts, and you're getting 0.03% back right now, something like that, while they're making huge gains with your money. As they go out and invest frivolously, recklessly, again, they're using your money, not their own, for gain or for loss. Yes, I would definitely support the Glass-Steagall Act being implemented again so that we can actually control, at least to some degree, the bank's use of our taxpayers' hard-earned money that they're putting into those banks and those institutions.
Okay, thanks. I have one here. Let's see here. Okay. Now, I know you've spoken with John Dent, Greater.us, and about the Greater Bill for 2012. He has a question, a couple questions. First, he asks if you would support the Greater Bill 2012, as they have up there on their website, greater.us. And also, he wants to know, would you support ending bribery and extortion of elected officials, ending gerrymandering, and what's your, well, let's go ahead with those, because he actually has several questions. So, would you support a Greater Bill 2012, and would you support ending extortion of officials and ending gerrymandering?
Okay, was that two questions or just one question regarding Greater Bill 2012?
That's just one, because honestly, it's weird how he emailed me, because those are part of the Greater Bill 2012, as I'm sure you know. So just making that one question, would you support a Greater Bill 2012?
Okay. And I'm sorry for breaking up. That's why I asked you, did you have two questions? I would definitely support Greater Bill 2012 to eliminate this, but I would take it a step further, because I don't believe that the lobbyists that are in Capitol Hill, on Capitol Hill, have any place there. They shouldn't be there, period. I believe that our government needs to run without bias and without influence from the corporate sector. This is one of the reasons that I've publicly stated that any lobbyist that is found in the office of any cabinet member, any congressman, any senator, I would say that that senator then would have to answer to his constituents, as well as criminal activity. We would have to get legislation on the books for that. I don't believe in lobbyists on Capitol Hill or the influence of money on government officials.
Yeah, just a few more questions, Andre. I appreciate your time here. It's actually good. You know, people are getting excited. Of course, they have had plenty of time to contact you, but you know how it is when it kind of comes down to it. People get really going. Here's one question that has come in. What is your stance, and what would you do as president in regard to indefinite detention of U.S. citizens? For example, say, if they're suspected, say, of terrorism or being an enemy combatant, something along that lines.
Well, the first thing is, number one, you cannot find a person to have, you can't find them with criminal allegation, or you can't hold them with criminal allegations if they haven't done anything. Now, I respect our intelligence community to the fullest. I've supported them many years in various countries for their various military campaigns, as well as here in the U.S. One of the things that I have found is that many of these things are leading to a larger mosaic puzzle, if you will, and all these pieces are coming together. Being able to detain a U.S. citizen indefinitely goes against all of the rights that U.S. citizens have. I detest this to the utmost. I don't believe that any U.S. citizen should be subjected to that sort of scrutiny or that sort of treatment by their government. How can you trust a government that can pick you off the street based on faulty information? Because we've seen in prior war campaigns, that they do have faulty information at times. And then subject your American citizens to the possibility of indefinite detention because of what may be terrorist ties. I think that we need to pinpoint more accurately our investigations. We need to have solid evidence. Now, this doesn't mean that we don't take action to prevent activity, but before we go and detain or mistreat an American citizen, we had better have solid proof. So as far as that is concerned, what I would do is I would remove that possibility from being in law or part of that legislation. What I would say is, yes, you can apprehend, question, but you have to treat them humanely, and you don't have to release them within a given time period. It would be the same as any other criminal activity. I believe it's 24 to 48 hours of detention, and then you have to release them. Now, that doesn't mean that you don't have them on constant surveillance. If there is credible evidence, even if it's not solidified, we do have the ability to put ankle bracelets on people. We can track. You can put them under surveillance. You can have them confined to their home or work or environments. If this is something that you have found as a tie, however, you cannot detain somebody, especially, and I've already seen the stories of people being detained, people with families, people that are taking care of other people. And one of the cases in point was a young man who was taking care of a family member from overseas. And they were not able to take care of themselves. And then it came out that that was what was actually going on. He didn't have any ties to any extremist organizations. It was just that he had traveled to that country, picked up that family member, brought him back to the U.S. to take care of him. That was it. He had no malicious intent whatsoever. Yet we detained him and put that poor individual at risk that really needed the aid and the caretaking of the person that went to get him. That's something that we just cannot stand for.
Thank you, Andre. Just 4 more questions here. I know you probably might feel like you're on the hot seat, but hey, you want to be president, you got to get used to it, right? Let's see here. We'll probably go ahead and get the most, I'll say, emotionally intense question out of the way. Pro-life. Can you hear me? Pro-life. What's your view on abortion and the consistent life ethic from conception to old age?
Okay. If you're asking for my personal feelings on this, I don't believe in any form of abortion. One of the things that I've said is, if you are practicing promiscuity and you are having sex out of wedlock, you've made a conscious decision. If it's unprotected sex, you've made another decision. Now, if it's rape, if something is forced upon you, these are case-by-case basis, and that's something that we have to address. However, again, this is a personal opinion. This is not something that I believe belongs in the government or the political arena. You see, this is something, life is dealing with any circumstances where you're talking about conceptualization of life. I think that's more faith-based, and I think that's where it should stay. That's between you, your God, and that baby that you have in you, and the significant other that you kind of conceptualize this child with. That does not belong in my arena. I don't need to be able to tell you what you can and can't do. I don't believe that's actually a government job. That's not something that we need to do. That's not what the President of the United States should be saying is or is not a possibility for individuals, because there are those bases where, or circumstances where things do happen if something is forced on you. But again, if you have gone out and made a conscious decision to do it, my personal belief is you have to live with your decisions. We can't say, and again, this comes from a moral ethic. You can't say that, okay, we've conceived a child, and I think the law is up to, it's either 3 weeks or 3 months. and I have to look at it again. Because, like I said, this is not something that I want to focus my campaign on. I would rather focus on the issues that really, really matter: getting people back to work, getting our children educated effectively, getting health care for as many individuals as possible, and protecting this country both physically, economically, and morally.
Thanks, Andre. Two final questions here. One is, would you consider, this comes from State of New York, William, would you consider becoming an active member of the Whigs? Why or why not?
And to follow up on that, I think even possibly more pertinent at this time, if you were to receive our support, what would you do to, how would you incorporate our support into your campaign? How would you acknowledge it? And what would you try to do to encourage Whigs to continue to support you throughout your campaign?
Okay, I'd really like you to repeat the first part of the question. I heard.
Well, it's the first question. I guess these could be considered two. Even though I believe the second one is a little bit more pertinent to the situation. First question is, would you consider becoming an active member of the Whigs? Why or why not? And the second one actually is my question. If you were to receive our support for president, what would you do within your campaign to acknowledge that support and also to encourage Whigs to work with you and work within your campaign?
Okay, thank you for restating that and clarifying. I would definitely consider becoming a member of the Whig Party. I think that you stand for good moral ethics. I believe that the Whig Party actually enhances the ability of Americans to make their own decisions and to exercise their freedoms that are God-given. I also believe that the Whig Party is a party that really cultivates growth in the community, and it also cultivates what one of my key subject matter is, and that is your patriotism. Any group, any organization, and this is nothing that is minor. Any organization that really focuses a lot of support on veterans, those people that fight in this country, has an extremely dear place in my heart. So I, as a veteran, really appreciate that sort of activity from any political organization. Now, how I would use and how I would effectively acknowledge the support. Number one, that would be, I definitely like to have some of the Whig membership, Whig Party membership, or modern Whig Party membership as part of my campaign. Any travels that we had, utilizing them to assist in structuring some of the policy, utilizing them to structure some of, or doing the research and getting that information. You've had quite a few members that have had interesting questions today, and that really, I will say this, to me, have really brightened up my day by showing that they have a sincere interest in what's going to happen to this country and the people that they would select as leaders. We have to have that. We don't have that anymore. We have people that are getting their feedback and their ideas, their ideals, and basically their opinions given to them by Fox News, MSNBC, CNN, ABC, all of these news channels, instead of doing the research for themselves. Right now, I'm hearing people that are doing their own research, that are actually coming to me with questions about specific bills, and I always point people to opencongress.org to look at pieces of legislation that are out there right now that are coming up to vote. The members that you have actually have that information They're ready to ask those questions, and I love to be engaged in those conversations. Those are the kind of people that I really want around me, and as a part of the staff that I have now. The other part is actually promoting and party growth. One of the same things that I do with the Reform Party is I've told them, you have to have an internal organization that is solid. You have to solidify your support. And one of the things that I would want to do is solidify support throughout any party that I am affiliated with. The Reform Party, the modern Whig Party, bringing those together, because we have got to show that we can be united no matter what. You may have small differences of opinion. You may have philosophical or theoretical differences. However, we have to focus on the larger issues. And I believe that we can agree on all of the bigger issues at hand. I think that showing this actually gives America a model, that kind of model that they need to pattern themselves after. Again, to say, hey, you know what? Throughout America's history, we've stood together through adversity. Now, right now, we have got to stand together again. And unifying parties, bringing together those people that may have differences in some areas for the greater good, to focus on those larger issues, is one of my primary goals and activities of this campaign.
Andre, thank you so much for your time. I know it probably was a little longer than you thought, but like you said, it's good that people are asking questions, being involved. That's one thing that I think all of us here during the convention and those online have learned is it's time for people to step up. It's time for people to step up and be prepared, not just with opinion, but with research, be willing to debate, collaborate for the greater good, to find what's effective and to promote that. Truly thank you for we thank you for running in this campaign. You've done a lot to get a very positive message out there, strength of character, and exhibit the type of public service and leadership that America needs. And we thank you very much for taking this time. And just again, thanks. And we will definitely be in touch with you. And regardless of whatever happens now and in the future, thank you for your service as a veteran. And keep doing what you can to make America better. Thank you so much for your time, Andre.
And to you and the entire assembly there, the National Whig Party, I appreciate this opportunity to address you again. And God bless the Whig Party. God bless the United States of America. Thank you.
Thanks, Andre.